Trade shows and conferences in the United States, that's just simply one of my favorite topics. So I'm so excited for being able to talk about this topic with you today, Thomas. But if you just share with the participants just a few words about yourself, then we can jump right into trade shows.
Absolutely. My name is Thomas. I was born in Denmark, but raised as an American. I've been in the LA area uninterruptedly for the last little bit over 20 years or so. I run a consulting firm focused on European companies coming into the US, helping them with market engagement and generally becoming successful in the US.
Fantastic. And my name is Charlotte Nytoft, and I am also an independent consultant helping Danish businesses establish their US setup. So it's actually supporting their long-term strategy and not prohibiting them for actually reaching their potential on the US market. I've worked with the United States now for a total of 16 years, lived in the United States for 10 years. So I'm super excited to be able to host this event together with you, Thomas, and we have done so for quite a few months now. And we are the format is the following. We are giving our input for about 40 minutes, and if you have any questions, then just raise hand or drop the questions in the chat box, and we will make sure to address your questions. So first of all, I think we should maybe talk about sort of the different types of trade shows in the United States, because there's obviously the big ones, the ones in Chicago and Orlando and LA and the other big trade show cities. And then there's obviously also the smaller ones, which you can call, what can we call them, Thomas? The tablecloth trade shows, which are usually by the local industry association.
Yes, the hallway trade shows, maybe.
The hallway trade shows, yeah. And then, but regardless, it's always a great opportunity to meet people in the industry that you are servicing. So don't underestimate the value of participating in trade shows and conferences. But on the other hand, if you don't sort of commit to participating like 3 or 4 years in a row, then don't even bother, so to speak, because it is a long-term investment.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And yeah. Do you have a few words on that?
I've had some personal experience with this many years ago. I worked for a European company, which sold clothing in the US, and we were the first non-US company to exhibit in Atlanta at the Southern Travelers Exhibitors fashion show. And we had some great conversations with buyers from big companies, and we're like, oh, and they really loved what we had. They're like, great, let's get some orders in. Oh no, we can't order from you. And we're like, what? What's the matter? Well, we've only just met. We can't order from you now. We don't know who you are. We don't know that you're going to come back next season and next season and next season. It's like, okay, well, what do we have to do? Well, we'll see next time you come back and we'll have another conversation, but tell us if you're coming back. And that was the end of that we came back and we told them that we were going to be back. But really what they said was they, at a minimum, they would not buy from someone who had not been to that particular trade show at least 2 years. But really it was more like, in the third year, then they would start with sample orders because they would not take on new products that they could not guarantee that their customers could have and buy and see for the foreseeable future. So they wanted reliability.
And I think that's where sometimes Danes go wrong a little bit, because there's just so much noise in the United States. It's easy to do business with the United States. Everybody wants to be there. So there's so many companies coming in, testing out the market, and then disappear again. And I think they have this resilience because they really want to see people staying there for the long run. And also you were able to actually be in dialogue with these people. But I have also experienced it quite a few times that after the third or fourth year, then buyers are coming up to the company and says, so we have kept an eye on you, and we see that you are coming back. So now let's talk. So you sometimes also really need to show that the commitment to the market. So absolutely. And then also, don't underestimate the difference between now we're talking the sort of the real trade shows, or the bigger trade shows, the trade show and the conference. And when you see the sort of the promotion for the conference, always look out for because the trade show, on the floor, the real booths as we know them are often starts a little later than the conference part. And the conference part is actually what I really want to also emphasize, how important that is for Danish businesses, and how often that is underestimated as a super valuable source for building up your business. So always check both the trade show days and the conference days. So you want to come at the conference dates as well, because you want to show the commitment to the industry. If you can get a seat at a committee that is working on a particular topic that your solution is capable of managing, then the conference part, the committee part is a place for you to be.
One of the things that's really important, and a topic that we've spoken about before, is that since the US is such a large market, which often again is underestimated in Europe, but because the US is such a large market, sometimes approaching a buyer and just being able to provide a small portion of what it is that they're looking for, a small solution as part of a larger solution. And on the conference side, one of the things that I talk about a lot is what I think of as thought leadership. And if you're in your go to the session, start as an attendee. And when there's a panel and they say, does someone have questions? Be the person in the front row is like, yes, me, I have a question. Oh, and I have another question. Yeah. Oh, and don't be shy, because it's one thing that's clear is that the Americans who come to the trade shows generally are not shy. The people who are sitting the people who are sitting on the panels and talking are there not because they like to hear themselves talk, but because they're networking.
Yeah, they're networking,
and that's important.
They're networking, but also the other underestimated part of the conference part of a trade show is, in the United States, there's the continued education credit, because basically every industry under the sun in the United States is run by a trade association that is issuing license to operate that particular field of expertise, and that certification needs to be maintained. We can take education in Denmark and be done with it for the rest of our life. Not so in America. You need continued education credits to actually maintain your certification, your license to operate in a certain industry. So that is when Danish salespeople say, technical salespeople say, yeah, I would really love to talk to the technical guy at the company.
That's where you need to be.
That's where you need to be. In a sales approach, that's oftentimes super difficult to actually enter a company on that level. But at a conference, they're there. The technical people are up behind the curtains, up the escalator in the conference rooms, talking about specific subtopics to that industry that is important. So with Danish technologies, more often than not being on the forefront of development and sustainability and whatnot, most likely you would be amongst people that are eager to hear what you have to say. So being there at the conference,
Yeah, and you have the opportunity. Salespeople I hear often say, like, well, if only I had the direct phone number to the purchasing manager of the products that I'm trying to sell. Well, guess who does have that direct phone number is the person sitting in the engineering department who can say, well, hey, listen, I know we've been buying this stuff, but hey, we need to talk to these people because they've got something really interesting to say. Mm-hmm. And once you have an advocate like this on the inside, and I'll say in a completely different field, but as a lawyer, of course, I have these continuing legal education credits that I need to take. And I take courses online, and, since the pandemic, of course, not so many in person, but you go to these in-person events, and afterwards, sometimes, like, I've had questions where I have a question from the panelists, and somebody else in the audience comes up and says, hey, I want to talk to you about this because I want to know, why are you even asking these questions? What do you do? Maybe we should talk because I think we could do some business together. And the same thing I've experienced as an exhibitor, as a participant at conferences and trade shows and everything else, where maybe it's, like you said, definitely sort of the strategy should include participation on these committees and panels and whatnot, and putting on your own panel or moderating a panel, but engaging with the people who are there, both the speakers, but also the other participants. And often when you come with a different perspective, even if your perspective isn't the traditional American thing where it's like, well, we have a fantastic solution, you know, we're the greatest in the world since sliced bread. You know, we had some companies here in October and they said, yeah, you know, I think we have a pretty decent solution. And the Americans are like, oh my God, this is amazing. Even if your approach is more sort of modest and considerate, you'll still capture the attention of the people that you really want to speak to, who are the ones who are going to be implementing your technologies.
Exactly. And also what I have learned, I have participated numerous times in the annual trade show for water technologies while I was living in the United States, and participating these technical sessions and whatnot. And what is also another stakeholder important at the coffee machine in the breaks is obviously the one who is responsible at the industry association to actually scouting for interesting topics to discuss at the next trade show, at the next conference. Yes. Yep. Or conferences that takes place between the major trade shows. So depending on how the industry is actually structured as to the continued education credit, the ones who is actually at the industry association responsible for continued education credit is also somebody who you would really like to receive the business card, because
absolutely,
because most likely you will sit in the audience and say, we could do that as well. I mean, our technology is basically superior to what we just have heard, and we are even further in Denmark or in Europe with the technology and the solution than is talked over here. So this is your time to actually put the bug in the ear at the ones who is actually organizing next year's trade show, and make sure also to figure out, you know, when is the call for abstract for next year, because that is typically very close to, or very few weeks after closing of this year's trade show, then this year's conference, then they are already in the planning for next year's program. So make sure that you actually keep an eye on these cutoff dates for submitting abstracts for next year's conference program.
And you make a good point also. Definitely join the organization that arranges the conferences, because that's an important aspect of, you know, it's like you first you have to plan really well for the conference. Make sure that if it's one of those trade shows like CES in Las Vegas in January, where most buyers come to look at new technologies, not so much buy, it's more of an exhibitor window. But make sure that the people that you want to meet are actually going to be there. Make sure that you do what you can in advance to reach out to people. And if it is more of a buyer's trade show, make sure that the buyers that you want to see are going to be there and that they know that you're there. But then when you get home after the trade show and you have a pocket full or a bag full of business cards, you have 500 business cards, you think that was a huge success. That's just the next leg in the journey. You definitely need to follow up with them. And that's where you have the opportunities from when you've spoken to the organizers and are collaborating with them about a panel for the next event. Now you have the opportunity to say, well, you know, we just joined the industry association. We're going to have this panel that we're going to put on, and you can engage with them in ways where, especially when it comes to the continuing education, where it's not an in-your-face sales approach, but you can tell them, hey, you know, when we attended this industry event, this panel, which we thought was really interesting, is that something that's interesting to you? You know, what kind of things would you like to see? Because we have all these other topics that we talk about frequently. Are you interested in this? Because we're in dialogue with the organization, and, you know, your feedback would be relevant. Now you're in dialogue with someone that you'd like to sell something to, and that goes a long way in keeping that channel of communication open.
Yeah, because it's all, in the United States, it's all about relationships, and building up these
Absolutely.
relationships are so crucial. And you're correct. I have numerous times worked with Danish businesses, and then they come with this halfway, wrinkled business cards, and say, yeah, we actually collected all these last year's trade show. And I said, oh, that's a little bit too late. So definitely see that as the most valuable output as actually attending the trade show, but make sure to have a plan already before you actually go to the trade show, how you want to follow up with these individuals. And then also it's really important for me also to stress if you're going to a trade show in the United States, it is an investment, and I know you would probably want to limit the number of people that you would invite to participate in trade shows, but make sure that you have your sales guy on the conference or the trade show floor, and you invite your R&D guy or your technical salesperson or your development team leader for the conference part, because it's two entirely different, you can say, target audiences. The ones who are going to the conferences, these are the ones that you usually would love to be in touch with, and who can actually help push your products in a soft sell mode up
Yes.
through the organization. So definitely you're investing the better part of a 250,000 Danish kroner in going to a trade show, then buy that one extra plane ticket and actually invites the technical guy to actually join the conference. So absolutely.
Which is another way of showing the people who attend the trade show that you are actually serious about the U.S. market, is that you have your technical support people right there.
Yeah. Because it's not, I was once at a trade show, and I was there with one of the guys and I said, I think you actually should go and participate in this conference part. And he came back like 2 minutes later and said, yeah, that didn't tell anything new. And I said, that is not the purpose of going to the it's actually to talk to somebody who's also there, because inherently by attending this conference part, you are basically interested in the same topic. So you have immediately a mutual frame of reference, and that is the part that is a little bit difficult for us Danes to actually engage in these relationship building activities, so to speak, the receptions and everything under the sun. So this gives you exactly that opportunity to have something of mutual interest that you can start talking about immediately, because there's not this barrier of why are you here and what can we talk about, because the interest is there. The topic that was on the agenda is already a mutual interest. So yeah, make sure that you invite the technical guys to the trade shows and conferences as well.
One of the things that you and I hadn't talked about in advance, but one thing that just comes to mind is when attending these trade shows and conferences, it's sort of reminiscent of a football team going to the Champions League or UEFA League or something like that. You bring your coach, and playing in Champions League is different than playing in your home league. And this sort of has the feel of the same difference. Not that the US is better or anything, but it's on a different scale. It's a different way of playing. You're playing against teams who play in a different way. And I think it's one of the ways in which you and I certainly can add value to companies who are participating in trade shows, is in guiding them to get the most out of these trade shows. And I don't think a lot of what we're saying, I feel, certainly is not rocket science. And some people might say, like, well, you know what, we know all that. But I will say that I know that you and I both have seen this over and over and over again, where we hear people say, like, oh yeah, we know all that. Oh yeah, we're definitely doing it. But more often than not, we experience people who've said, oh, I went to this panel, they didn't have anything interesting for me to hear. And the things that we've said many times, and it's also for the companies, it's a process of changing their game, and learning to engage in a better way, in a better, more useful way through through these conferences and trade shows.
Absolutely. And I've also seen, that work in real life, make sure that because the trade show, the participation in the trade show and the conference does not start at that day. It starts weeks in advance, making sure that you have also the press kit ready, that you have made press releases, that you have maybe submitted something for the industry association that is bringing this conference to you and to their constituents, and make sure to actually make some noise about yourself as a company, that you're participating and who is participating, and look forward, because and that's more the smaller, what we call them, tablecloth hallway conferences, that say, we read about your technology at our newsletter a few weeks back, so we're super excited to meet you and hear more about your technology. So definitely make sure that you make some noise about participating before you actually go, and not just concentrate of having all the roll-ups finished on time. So participating and participating with prior press strategy is absolutely an advantage for you
Yes.
as a business. Yeah.
I know one of the things that we've talked about also is engaging with your fellow attendees, and there will, always be events associated with trade shows and conferences, whether it's a breakfast, a lunch, a dinner, a cocktail party, and one of the things that I often tell people, even Americans, it's not like Americans are always fantastic at networking, but especially if you're a foreign company and you've spent a lot of money being here and you've brought 5 or 10 people, celebrate when you get home, have, however you want, get together when you get back, but set yourself some goals. When you have 10 people who go to a reception, split up. Don't talk to each other. You can talk to each other all day when you get home, and set yourself some goals. For instance, say, you're going to go to this reception. Each person should meet 3 to 5 people, but have more of a quality conversation with them. And then make notes when you meet someone, bring lots of business cards always, but when you meet someone, you've exchanged business cards, make a quick note on the back of that person's business card, what you spoke about, so that when you get back home, and like you said, you have a big bag of crumpled business cards, but you can look at the back of the business cards like, this guy or gal I spoke to about this. So you have you can follow up. It's a better quality follow-up. You can continue the conversation that you had, and you don't have to sit remembering, even if it's only a few days or a week later. And you can sort of have a huddle with the group of people that are there, say, well, here's the people that I met. Who did you meet?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And that is also, really important, that take the time you're flying half across the globe, and then really use the time. Don't fall into the trap. Obviously, there are things you need to attend to on the emails and so on when you get back, and you would love to go to the hotel room because you are jet lagged and whatnot. But the relationship building is really by attending these side events, so to speak. And also the reason why you should bring the you can say the tech guys that does not have the agenda of being at the booth ready to sell is actually that a number of times the official conference program also includes some site visits, and the connection you can make on a bus trip to see some site is really so valuable. You can pay hundreds and thousands of dollars for making market research that would never ever climb to the level of sitting in a bus, going to kick some tires and see a facility or whatever is your industry specific goal, and that's simply, you cannot buy that relationship for money, basically. So
Yeah.
So make sure that you don't stress yourself, and make sure that you have adequate time to actually participate in these conference programs. Also, as you can only do so much in advance, and make sure that you have somebody, the technical guy, who does not have any commitments at the booth, and don't feel that he is leaving his colleagues there, all by themselves, and that he actually really have the time to be present in the conference setting.
One of the things is a very good point, and one of the things I found also is these insights that you gain. I had a specific example where we had some companies out here, and they were looking at water treatment facilities, and they said, well, this facility is so big, we simply don't have a unit that can handle that kind of volume. And they got to go see the facility, and the sort of the competition, or the older technology that they were using. Turns out there wasn't one unit that handled this the whole capacity was like 34 units, because they had the largest older technology, the largest scale unit, but because the volume through this facility was so big, they'd have 34 of them. So there was basically this whole football field doing this one process, where they're like, oh, well, we thought that you just had like one enormous thing. And they're like, no, we can't. There's nobody makes anything this big, because this is just a huge facility. Yeah. And it was such an eye opener for them, which they wouldn't have otherwise had if they had sort of just stayed with the conference program.
Exactly, because everything is bigger in the United States, and you will have surprises when you come out and see the volume, and whether it's a water treatment or anything else in their capacity, it's usually older and bigger than you actually expect. But another thing I really also want to point out, not to jump in the agenda, so to speak, but really also make sure, like we talked about the press material on beforehand, but also really remember to actually invite your customers and stakeholders and everybody that you have in your contact list of US customers. And I've unfortunately seen it too many times that the companies actually, sometimes the smallest and most obvious to-dos on the list is actually forgotten. So really make sure that you are inviting as many in your contact list as possible.
And going back to what you said before, the industry association pretty much as soon as this event is over, they're already planning the next one. Learn from that. You should too.
Yeah.
If they take a full year to successfully plan an event, why aren't you? That's what I want to know, because when you've gone, you should have, your preparation in advance. One of the questions always is like, well, how much time should we spend? Well, how much is this opportunity worth for you? Well, the US is a huge market. Well, then you should spend a huge amount of time.
Yeah. That's right.
And sometimes, I see where people just don't spend that much time, because they're like, well, we've been to trade shows before, so we know how to do this.
Yeah.
Are you selling a lot of products and services in the US currently? Well, no. Okay. Well, this goes back to a recurring theme that we've had about this journey. If you're planning a vacation to a place that you go constantly, you could probably spend less time planning. But if you're going to a new place, well, it's going to take you a little bit longer to learn the places that you want to go see, and where should you stay, and how should you get there, and all these other things.
Yeah. And also, obviously, United States is a big country, but now still you're there, you might as well organize some your own side events to the trade show as you are already in the United States. So make sure that you also leave a little time extra if situations occur where you would receive an invitation to actually join a company or visit with and engage with somebody after the trade show is over. That's really valuable for you as well, and also to jump on that opportunity. And also, I want to mention another thing that we discussed about preparing for the trade show, because I hear very often Danish businesses have not thought about sort of the price point in the market before they actually go to the trade show. So there's two things that we have talked about in prior Tuesday talks is the price. You know, before you actually know the price in the market and what you actually, your landed price in United States, it is super difficult for you to go to a trade show, because then you would be at the trade show and look a little bit unprepared for what's next for your business. So if you're looking for partners at the trade show, have something prepared so the partner can actually see what's in it for him if he engages with you in a further dialogue. If you're looking for customers, then make sure to be really with secure voice, be able to say this product costs so and so X warehouse in the United States. That's your price on the market.
Exactly.
So really make sure you have this and you have this ready. And also, if you have that's also from a prior Tuesday talk, make sure that you have your IP rights in place, because as your potential customer may go and take a peek at you and not contact you until year 4 or 3 when you're exhibiting, then you can also be sure that somebody else is scouting for interesting technologies. And if they see an interesting technology that is not patenting or taking out the trademark registration, then you can make sure that if you decide like 3 or 4 years later that you want to do a little bit more activity on the US market, that somebody have already done that for you, and then you can go and buy your own trademark.
Yeah.
So
And one of the ways, I mean, you make a good point also about being prepared with pricing and finding out like what are you actually looking for at the trade show? Is it a partner? Is it customers? And a slightly less expensive and slightly less involved way of getting to that point is participating at these trade shows as an attendee, where you can get a lot of the benefits of meeting with other attendees, participating in the side events, the side conferences, the site visits. But as an attendee, and you are in a slightly more flexible position, you can ask a lot of questions, and you can see like who's the competition, you know, where do we want to be in the confines of the show? You know, do we really want to be in this section where we've been asked to be, or do we really want to be somewhere else? And do we have good reason for that? Then you could probably make some of those things happen. And now, having attended the show as an attendee, you have a full year typically until the next one, and you can start engaging with the association and with the other attendees, and you can start planning your visit much better.
Oh yeah. And that is a really good point, because that also gives you an opportunity to understand the competition, what other competing technologies are on the market, and what are how are they positioning themselves, and what are the price point, if you can even figure that out during a trade show, but at least how are you going to position yourself in the market. And so that is really valuable input you can get from attending a trade show. And then then I think
No, and for European companies, one good thing about attending before you're an exhibitor is you also get an insight into how Americans communicate. I know that we've had companies here where there was a conference, and it started with the president, whose name is Stephen, thanking the chairman, whose name is Steve, and then another board member whose name is also Steve was thanking Steve and Stephen and Steve. So that became sort of a recurring joke, was like, oh, don't forget to thank Steve and Stephen and Steve. But it goes to an important point where the communication styles are different. And not to say that you have to turn yourself upside down and do things completely different, but you get a really good insight, and maybe you can change some things so that it's, or at least you know what to expect in return from your communication.
Exactly. Yeah. And then the whole, and that's a completely different subject, but the whole, be ready to have your elevator pitch, or have your elevator pitch ready, and be ready to be challenged on that and asked about that, because Americans have a super short attention span, because like Thomas just said, they also just have their list of people that they want to engage with. So you can't expect the people that you meet with and you engage with at the cocktail party or the welcome reception or new attendees reception or whatever reception it may be, that they have half hours to actually talk with you. So you really need to make things short and sweet. But that is of course on a completely separate note. But it is definitely very, very important that you understand the communication and the way Americans expect you to actually super short and sweet tell them what's in it for them, what you do, what problems you solve, and what's the benefit for the customers. So yeah, be ready to do that.
And on the benefit side, the benefit that you think your products provides them may not be the benefit that they're looking for. And especially coming from Europe, where we take for granted that sustainability is very high on the agenda, while your technology may meet that sustainability agenda item, and that might be a really good selling point in Europe, you may have to start with something else. And I know I've mentioned this before, Vestas has been really good at telling utility companies in Texas, hey, we can produce power cheaper than coal, which got their attention. Yeah. And if they'd gone and said, hey, we can help you be more sustainable. Yeah. Well, we're not looking to be sustainable. We're an electric company. We sell electricity. We make a profit between what our costs are and what the price that we can charge.
Exactly.
Where does sustainability fit into that? Somewhere down the line, perhaps, but that's the most important conversation to have with those companies.
Yeah.
And you really got to get that understanding of, are you actually telling them what is most important for them to hear?
But that's actually that is just by going through the conference program, even though you may not decide to participate in the conference part of the trade show, just looking at the headlines of the conference program tells you a lot about the headaches the industry has. And if you don't see anything that resonates with our agenda in Europe, then you may need to tailor your whole communication to fit the industry, what the industry is concerned about. So, and that's often completely counter to what we are actually focused on in Europe. So yes. We're about to hit our 40-minute mark, but there was one thing I wanted to say, and if you have any questions, then feel free to put them in the Q&A or write me, and then we will address your question. But another thing, the very last thing I want to make sure, don't make too many deals though. You need to go and spend time at the bar and have a drink with your fellow participants and the other attendees at the show, but don't make too many deals at the bar.
Yes, no, that's important.
Yeah. Sometimes when you have visited a trade show, that's really where, especially if that's one of your first engagement with the US market, then participating in a trade show can be super overwhelming, because you see all these, you need to do this and you need to do that, and the United States is huge, and there's just so many moving parts that you need to adhere to in your market entry, and it can seem super overwhelming. So sometimes it gets a little bit too easy to give the entire opportunity to somebody that you meet at the bar. It's super good to meet somebody, and it can be your best decision, but don't make any final agreements right then and there. So yeah.
No, and that's also, it's, Americans are often much more excited about new things, and and you're thinking like, oh my God, they're telling me that our product is fantastic. Well, I mean, I think it's pretty good, but that's great. And you get swept up in the enthusiasm that's common in the US. And the good thing to do is, if you're at the bar, get the business card and have another conversation in the morning.
Exactly. Yeah. Have another conversation and one more when you get back.
and then another perhaps. But yeah,
Exactly.
it doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt to start the conversation in the bar.
Exactly. That's where a lot of good deals is that's the birthplace of a lot of good ideas in the United States.
Yes,
so yeah, absolutely.
That's for sure.
It's definitely where you start building up relationships, and you also need to. I think we've also talked about this in a prior call. It's not so much the individual you're talking to, but it's the law of the 250, that this person has most likely 250 people in his or her sphere of influence, and these are the ones that you would like to gain access to if you are building up relationships. And there's no better place to do that than at a trade show, because you're there with mutual interest, and there's just so many trade shows in the United States. It's you could spend your entire year just traveling around to trade shows in the US that fits your industry. So yeah,
even just within your own industry. I mean,
exactly.
there's an industry of trade shows, for heaven's sake. So
exactly.
It is just amazing. It's huge.
Yeah. And actually, there's also some pretty good, the Danish Export Association has some pretty good joint exhibitions in the United States, and that is, you can say your way through trade shows is maybe first to attend a trade show, then participate at a joint Danish pavilion, and then go on to having your own booth at a trade show. That's also a good a way to actually develop into a full-scale trade show attendee.
Yeah, exactly. Start small and focused, and learn and grow from there.
Exactly. Super. All right, Thomas, it has been a pleasure, and I hope that the attendees got some insights here, and other ways, shoot us an email. We will send out a recording of our Tuesday talk later, and feel free to reach out if there's any questions or concerns we can address.
It's been a pleasure as always, and I'll look forward to doing this again next month.
Absolutely. Talk later, and have a good day.
Thank you.
Take care.
You too.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.